This is LBC.
With Vauxhall, energising a better Britain.
It's 10 to 1. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Simon Marks is here, or rather there, but here at the same time. And just a quick word on why this matters. CBS is the official US partner of the BBC, and that is why it is of particular interest that they are going through a little local difficulty, Simon.
Yes, I mean, that is now becoming a national story here in the United States, and a story with tentacles that are going to reach into the heart of New Broadcasting House, I think. This is over the firing of Scott Pelley, the former anchorman of the CBS Evening News, a 37-year veteran of the network where Edward R. Murrow, Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather once read people the news and told people what was going on around the world. But CBS, of course, has now fallen under the ownership of the Ellisons, Larry and David Ellison, father and son team, who have themselves pledged fealty to President Donald Trump and are turning CBS into an ever increasingly craven media outlet as far as the White House is concerned. And so Scott Pelley was fired last night from his position at the news magazine 60 Minutes after standing up and objecting to the appointment of the programme's new executive producer a few days ago, a man by the name of Nick Bilton, with a pretty thin curriculum vitae in terms of broadcast experience, and certainly thin experience relevant to helming the most watched news magazine programme in America for decades. Prominent correspondents have been fired from CBS, most notably a woman called Sharon Alfonsi, who, of course, saw a report that she had produced about the Trump administration's decision to fly undocumented illegal aliens out of the country to a terrorist detention center in El Salvador. She did a big investigative piece about that was delayed from being transmitted for weeks after Barry Weiss, the woman who is now editor-in-chief of CBS News, weighed in and said that the piece needed to have a voice from the Trump administration. It was pointed out to her that the Trump administration had been approached for comment and had refused to put anybody up for interview, and the piece was still delayed from being transmitted for weeks. Scott Pelley confronted all of this in a staff meeting last week at CBS 60 Minutes, confronted the new executive producer of the programme, said that under Barry Weiss's leadership of CBS, 60 Minutes is being, in his words, murdered. He was peremptorily fired last night, essentially for insubordination towards the new leader of the programme, but he has responded with a devastating statement that says, last month 60 Minutes lost its DNA when our entire senior leadership and two of our best on-air correspondents were cruelly fired without cause. They stood for fairness against the forces of political bias. They stood for professionalism against chaos. He says that for his part, the new management has instructed me to inject falsehoods and bias into a politically sensitive story. I've been told to include assertions that are untrue. He also says that in one case, a story that he was involved in, the entire programme came within 19 minutes of not getting on air at all due to what he describes as the incompetence and unprofessionalism of the new management. But these claims of political bias, which are being repeated by multiple figures still at the network and several who have left, creates a real issue for the BBC, which continues to use CBS as its official US news partner, doesn't disclose to the public when it cites CBS that these issues are now bedeviling the network, and of course is in a very difficult position because it's being sued by Donald Trump for $10 billion, and any attempt to kind of move away from CBS might only inflame the President of the United States and have some implications for that legal case. But CBS in pieces this morning, and a situation that I think is becoming increasingly untenable for our public broadcaster.
I mean, the implication, if that's a strong enough word, clearly being that the CBS is being turned into an outlet that will not brook or allow criticism of Donald Trump, and worse, that all coverage has to reflect whatever it is that Donald Trump wants to hear. A situation that's unlikely to be criticised by Tony Blair anytime soon, Simon, given that he has gifted, at the time of talking, about £257 million to the Tony Blair Institute. But I digress. At least there's good news over at Intelligence. This guy, Bill Pult, he looks like a very experienced spy. I mean, he's practically James Bond crossed with... think of a very famous American spy, quickly. Who's like the American James Bond, Sheila? This joke's not working at all.
There's no American James Bond.
Matt Damon. Who does Matt Damon play? Anyway, he's basically the American James Bond, Simon.
Yeah, there is no American James Bond, and he certainly isn't. You're talking about Bill Pulte, who's just been named the new Director of National Intelligence by President Trump, acting to replace Tulsi Gabbard, who, of course, has quit the government over as a result of her husband's cancer diagnosis. She says that she needs to be with him and can't remain in post. I mean, Bill Pulte has come across from the country's housing regulator, where he has been accused of producing evidence that investigators can use to bring possible criminal cases against figures that have wronged Donald Trump, particularly accusations, for example, of mortgage fraud that have been brought against a couple of figures here. And all of this just underscores the nature of a government that has no interest in qualifications for a position like Director of National Intelligence. The real qualification you've got to have is complete loyalty to the boss. A position, and Bill Pulte demonstrates that in spades.
Indeed, and a background in real estate development, perhaps even inevitably, you could say now. And it's a position that was created, of course, in the aftermath of the September 11th terrorist attack. So, on the one hand, reward loyalty. On the other, excuse criminality if loyalty is part of the play. That side of the Trump project not going so well today.
No, the weaponisation fund that we were talking about last week, this $1.776 billion fund. Jack Ryan.
Carry on, Simon. Sorry, Simon.
But he's no James Bond.
No, you're
that
right.
$1.776 billion weaponisation fund is now going away, according to the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. So, no payout coming for the January the 6th insurrectionists. But important to underscore that the elements of the deal that Donald Trump struck, immunity from any further investigation into his past tax affairs or the past tax affairs of his businesses or the past tax affairs of his immediate family members, that absolutely stays in play, and that may be far more valuable to him than that weaponisation fund was ever going to be.
Great stuff, yeah, and Jason Bourne, of course, but that you're right to repeat that. It's one of those things you can't repeat too much, isn't it? An immunity from investigation for the tax affairs of your entire family. It's like the Borgias. And we haven't had time to mention this extraordinary new Aliens website, but we may have time to do that tomorrow. Simon Marks live from Washington, D.C., where I can see in the background that hideous wrestling ring. Have you got tickets?
Have I got a ticket? Yeah. No, I won't be here, sadly, James. I'm going to be on your side of the Atlantic. I'll be in the studio with you when they are celebrating Donald Trump's 80th birthday. It does rather look as though Transformers have arrived in Washington, D.C. and set up immediately behind the White House, and there might be some that would welcome that move if it had really happened.
The Transformers, indeed. Optimus. Where's Optimus Prime when you need him? Thank you, Simon.